On behalf of the Rotary Club of Mocksville, we're continuing our conversation with World War II veterans, and I'm very happy today to have Jaybird Plott, who is going to be our next veteran to talk to us about his experience during World War II. And let's just go ahead and go back to the 1940s, Mr. Plott. Tell us where you were living when the war broke out.
We was living on what at that time was Liebrook Farm.
Mm-hmm.
It is now Bermuda Run. And I worked on the farm, and I was at one of the old country stores on Sunday afternoon when they announced that Pearl Harbor had been bombed. And I thought, well, then I'd probably have to go into service. And 1942, I was drafted. And at that time, Dr. Martin was a doctor in Mocksville that looked at you first. I go down to him and I told him, I said, Doc, I can't go. He said, why? And I said, I got flat feet. And he said, that's what they're looking for. But anyhow, I went in the Army, and I never come home from the day I left till the war was over with, and I come home. I never got furlough, one, and nothing. So I took my training, basic training, in Camp Campbell, Kentucky, which is now called Fort Campbell, Kentucky, with a tank division. And we trained for, I guess, 6 weeks or something like that. And then we would move to Camp Kilmer, New Jersey. And we stayed there for, Kyle, my memory is beginning to sort of fade on me.
Well, it's been a number of years. I can understand that.
So, but anyhow, we loaded out in New York on a boat, and we come down the coast and picked up another bunch of ships out of Norfolk, Virginia. And we was told that there was 200 ships in our convoy, plus submarine chasers, destroyers, and we had a couple submarine attacks on the way over. But I went to North Africa. I landed in Casablanca, North Africa. And they told us that we was the first real bunch of replacements for General Patton after Kasserine Pass. That was one of the major battles in
Against
Rommel. And I joined what they called the I Armored Corps. We were attached to the 1st Armored Division. And we kept General Patton's tank in the tank that he used. We kept it with us. And he had a table he could fold out inside the tank. All the mechanism and everything had been took out inside. And he could lay that map of the terrain on the table, and which really come in handy at Kasserine. You know, he knew the terrain. So then we went on into Tunisia. Of course, I guess the Germans was more or less retreating to Sicily and Italy. We didn't meet too much resistance, and we went to Bizerti, Tunisia. That's where we loaded on the ships to make the invasion of Sicily. We had been there approximately a week in the staging area, and this British outfit moved in beside of us, and our captain, which was a real good guy, he's from South Carolina, he went over and told them that they should put their camouflage nets up. We already had ours up, and because you could set your watch. The German bombers was coming at 9 o'clock. They'd be there at 9 o'clock. And he went over and told them that they should put their camouflage nets up, and they all know they didn't need them, but they found out they did. On the third night after that, the German bombers would come, and they would send in one plane, and he would cut his engines and drop flares, and it would be as bright as any moonlight night you ever seen, and you could just see everywhere. And they dropped a bomb on the British outfit, and we load them on trucks and everything, get them back to the hospital. 3 of the guys in our outfit got wounded, but nothing serious. So we loaded on the boat in Bizerti, made the invasion of Sicily. We was in the second wave, and where we went in to Sicily, there wasn't any real port, and they was using amphibious ducks to unload the boats. And we got on the beach and got part of our equipment and everything, and 2 American Air Force P-38s strafed us. And we found out later that they said that they was the pilots, that was their first taste of combat, and they made a mistake. But it was.
Did anybody get hurt?
2 guys in my outfit got hit, not one in the leg and one in the arm. They didn't. But you're laying there and they spitting all around you. But anyhow, and we went in the. We had advanced in. I don't remember, maybe 5, 10, 15 miles, and we've seen this white flag come up over a little rise place. The captain told us, and the sergeant said, "Now, wait a minute, don't get in no hurry. It could be a trap." But we, they went coming out, and they could speak English, and they were tagging uniform. And come to find out, there was about 20 of them. And come to find out, they had either been deported or was over in Sicily and Italy visiting relatives or visiting, and got picked up and put in the Italian army. And we was really surprised. Of course, they had the Brooklyn accent, but we were surprised that they could speak English. And they didn't give us no trouble. So we went on. We finished up Sicily and the Palermo.
So the fact that you were in Sicily tells me that you were under General Patton.
Oh, I was under Patton, yes.
Did you ever rub elbows with Patton? Did you see him? Did you?
Oh, yeah. yeah, yeah.
What was he like? What was Patton like?
Did you see the movie?
I did.
Well, you've seen him. I mean,
Prima donna.
he was. But I'll tell you one thing. Uh, he made the statements. You know, he said, boys, take care of your equipment. He said, I can get more men, but equipment's hard to come by. You know, I mean, but he.
Did you respect him?
Sir,
Did you respect General Patton?
I did. I did. He had his faults, and one thing about General Patton, if he had an object to take, where ordinarily it would take others maybe 2 weeks to take it, he'd take it in 3 days. I mean, because he had a theory which I think was, he told, if you get them on the run, don't give them time to regroup, and that's the way he was. I mean, you one time get moving, you kept moving.
Now, in the movie, when the troops made it to Palermo, they arrived with a lot of pomp and circumstance, music going. Was that what it was really like when you took Palermo?
I don't remember. Well, I do remember. I guess some of the civilians was so glad. I guess it was there that they did make some music on the streets. But in Sicily, the Germans got the stringing piano wire across the road. One of Patton's orders was, if you was riding in a Jeep or a command car, anything that had a windshield and top, you had it down. You had the windshield down and the top off. So if you got into a strafing situation or anything, you could get out of the vehicle quick and take cover. And so he had. I mean, I'm speaking of my outfit.
Sure.
They took all our Jeeps and command cars into ordnance, and they welded a piece of angle iron on the front bumper. And up about where it would be, they cut a notch in that angle iron. And you'd go down the road, and you'd hear a ping. That wire would slide up that angle iron and hit that notch and cut it. And and then we had anybody that was over there knows that the biggest one of German's biggest tools was their 88. And we was in Sicily. We was out not too far from Palermo, and we got every night. We'd get there'd be 4 or 5 rounds of ammunition come from somewhere, and they couldn't figure out where it was coming from. But every night you'd get 5 or 6 rounds of 88 ammunition.
What's it like you grew up in Davie County, an agricultural community. You grew up in Davie, an agricultural community, and you're all of a sudden taken from this wonderful environment that we call Davie, and you're placed in Sicily, and you're being shot at.
Yeah.
What's that like?
Well, I guess the word would be, it's hard to describe. You know you're there, and you know you'll be there, or got to do your part, but you're always thinking about home, where I was, and what you left at home. But it's all together. And I've had guys to tell me that they wasn't afraid. They're different from me. I was afraid when the danger come. I was afraid. I didn't mind admitting it.
What kind of weapon did you carry?
Well, we had, I carried the M1, and also the tank outfit, we carried a 45 on the side too. And but they would shoot that gun, and then, but they found out, somebody found out that they had put 88 artillery piece on a flat car, and had rolled that flat car in a tunnel in the side of the mountain, and they'd roll it out at night and fire 5 or 6 rounds and roll it back in there. They found out, and the Air Force laid a bomb in the tunnel, so that didn't bother us no more. But
do you remember, Mr. Plott, in your first combat experience, do you remember the first time that you took your weapon and shot at the enemy?
Kyle, to be honest with you, I really I don't remember ever really shooting nobody. I mean, I shot, but I mean, as far as knowing that I hit an individual, I didn't know it. But the troops, the ordinary German soldier, which was like me and the others, they didn't give you no trouble. I mean, if you captured them, okay, because I understood after the war, I didn't know it, but after the war, they brought prisoners over here and worked them in the United States. But the SS troops that Hitler had more or less raised up, you didn't trust them. I mean, that wasn't but one way to handle them, and that's just take care of them. But so after Sicily, they brought in General Patch, which had served in Guadalcanal, what they told us. They removed General Patton after Sicily, but they had a reason. What I mean, they had a purpose for him.
He got in trouble.
Yeah, and then, but they brought him back in after D-Day.
He was a decoy up until D-Day.
Yeah. But anyhow, after that, they moved us, my outfit, back to North Africa, and dismantled us as far as the outfit. And General Patch was over us, and he had the 7th Army. That's what he. So they put the biggest part of us, several of us men that was authorized to drive anything they had, more or less. They put us in the motor pool, 7th Army Headquarters motor pool. And we stayed in North Africa. I don't remember how long, but we left there and went to Naples, Italy, and set up headquarters there. And I was assigned to this captain that was come out of 3rd Infantry Division, and his job was to go and pick out buildings or secure buildings for headquarters to move up whenever they. And we was in Naples and for I don't know, and then I always said we went in the back door. We went in about 15 miles out of Marseille, France. That's where we went in, and met very little resistance, except snipers. We had the snipers were still bad in Marseille, and so we went on up more or less through France and met up with the boys that had come in from D-Day, and me and this captain had been up to the front to more or less for him to look around at buildings and stuff. And we was on the way back to where we was stationed, and the Air Force had bombed out a bridge, and it was one-way traffic. And him being a captain, I was just a PFC, I was just a driver, you know. He said to pull out and go on up to the front. So, and I did. Well, I seen it when we went by. I seen Patton's command car in the line. Just about time we got by it, he bellowed out, "Stop that Jeep." I forget what he probably made a 4-star by then. Mm-hmm. But he said, if a general can wait, a captain and a PFC can wait. You get in the back of the line. And that captain said, "Who's that? Who's that?" I said, "That's General Patton." He stood up in that Jeep, and when we went, I backed up. And when he went by, he saluted, you know. But we went back to the back of the line. We waited. But like I said, I didn't have no faults for Patton. He had his nickname was
Blood and Guts.
Yeah. And
let me ask you this, and I've asked this to all the veterans. When you entered the military, World War had broken out. Did you hate the Germans?
Kyle, I won't say it. I hated the Germans. I hated Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
That was my, of course, a 20-year-old, I was 20, you don't worry about too much. You just go ahead and do what you got to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, they, after the war, I would have really liked to have went back 2 or 3 years after and see some of the people that befriended me, and but I didn't go. I didn't have the means to go for one reason. And then I got married, and so I just. But it was a lot of. Like I said, I didn't really hate the Germans, but I did hate him.
What if someone asked the question, name one event in your time in Europe that really stands out in your mind? What would be that event? What comes to your memory of something that really stands out in your experience?
Well, I guess one of it would be the strafing incident on the beach in Sicily would be one, and then just seeing how joyful the majority. Now I can understand if some of the French people, I saw them, if they befriended the Germans while it was, in other words, it was in order to save their life. Mm. You know what I mean. But then another thing that really stands out is how good or how much the people appreciated when we took a town. They were just tickled to death to see you, and and then one thing that really stands out is while we was there in Bizerti, waiting to get on the ship. Like I said, they would come every night. And Every anti-aircraft gun on every boat, and the gun emplacements, everybody was shooting at them. And they had searchlights, and they would get a plane in that cross mark in that searchlight, and that's when they could bring him down. But this.
Did you see firsthand? Did you see a lot of death?
A lot of what?
Death.
Well, yeah, but not. I wouldn't say like maybe some of the boys did see, but I did see, yeah. But they tried to take care of that as quick as they could and get it out of the way. You know, I mean, they. But we was, I can't remember exactly where we, but they, the first sergeant in my outfit, he said the 819th bomb group needs truck drivers, and said if I'm gonna send 3 of y'all to them. So on paper, they transferred me to the 819th Bomb Squad, and their job was to haul the bombs from the staging area or depot, wherever that, to the different airfields in France. And the first night that I went and got a load, I was scared all the way back. It was we had to go about 25 or 30 miles. And I was afraid every time I'd hit a bump, you know. So the next morning when we was unloading at the airfield, I said something to the sergeant. I said, I was a bit scared last night. He said, why? And I said, well, you know, I don't remember how many bombs, but I had a load. And he said, there's no danger in that bomb till we hang it on the airplane and fuse it. He said, you need to worry about it, you know. But I didn't know that the first trip. So yeah.
Where were you the day that the atomic bomb was dropped?
We was in right outside of Brussels, Belgium. That's what, yeah.
Was that an exciting time when you heard that?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I've asked this to everybody. I'm going to ask you the same question. Do you think that dropping the atomic bomb was the right thing to do?
Well, I look at it 2 different ways. I realize that so many innocent people died that didn't have anything more to do with the war, but I'm satisfied that it saved a lot of American lives. I believe that. I think if I had to say, I'd say it was the right thing. That's just personally, because I'm speaking more or less for the military. I mean, you know, the soldiers. It saved it.
Where were you when the war ended?
I was in Belgium.
And how did you find that out? Was it announced over a loudspeaker? Or did somebody come up and give you a message?
They more or less took us in groups. You know, I don't remember how many at the time, or how many, and a non-commissioned officer, sergeant, most of the time be a staff sergeant, they'd tell you, they'd announce it.
Mm-hmm. Was there excitement?
Oh yeah.
How did the group react?
This yipping and hollering and cheering, you know, this glad. So we see they had, of course, General Eisenhower. I can't remember where. I think it was somewhere in France. Anyhow, he made a speech to us, and he said then that anybody that served in North Africa and Sicily, in other words, the Mediterranean, they would not have to go to the Pacific. At that time, some of the boys, if they served over there, it also had to go according to what kind of outfit it was. But he said we wouldn't have to go, and they also had they had some kind of point system. If you every day that you spent within so many miles of the front line, you get points, and if you had enough points, you know, and I had more than enough to. So, but when it's over with, we were loaded on a boat in Antwerp, Belgium. That's where we loaded up to come home. And they told us that there was 250 men, and 50 men on there were scheduled to come through the States and go on to the Pacific. But the war was over with, even in Japan. I don't think it, but we loaded up in Antwerp and come in to Norfolk, Virginia, and we got close enough where you could see the shoreline. 7, 8 o'clock one night, and the captain said we're going to wait till daylight, and everybody was wanting to go on in, you know, to get. But we waited till the next morning before we docked.
How long before you were back in Davie County?
You mean from the time I left?
No. From the time that you.
I think we stayed up at the camp there in Norfolk 2 days, and then we come into Fort Bragg. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and that's where I got discharged from. At Fort Bragg.
You probably took a bus from Fort Bragg back to Moxville?
Yeah.
Well,
there was a boy down at Fort Bragg that had a car, and he had originally from Greensboro. So anyhow, he told us that he would bring. There was 5 of us from around in Forsyth County, you know. And he said, "I'll carry 5 of you to Winston-Salem for $50." You know, so that's. I come to Winston. We got there about 5 or 6 o'clock, maybe 7 o'clock at night, and I didn't want to come home then. So I just went and got me a hotel room and got up the next morning and caught the Greyhound bus out to the. At that time, my dad was working for S. Clay Williams down there, what they call Windmark Farm. Mm-hmm. And that's where I got off the bus, right there.
Was there a fanfare?
Sir?
Was there a fanfare and people waiting for you?
No. But I tell you what did happen. I went to the barn and seen him first. And then he went on over to the house, with me. And back then, we didn't have running water. You know, had a well. And my mother was at the well, and I don't remember where she was cleaning a chicken or cleaning fish or something, but she was at the well cleaning something. And when I walked around the corner of the house, and she turned around and seen me, she threw the knife up, and the knife went in the well.
So that knife is still in that well somewhere.
I guess so, yeah.
Well, let's begin to close our conversation. One of the purposes of filming this is so that your family and future generations can hear about your story and your service in World War II.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
If you wanted to tell somebody, let's say 25 years from now, something about your experience in World War II, what would it be?
Well, I look back and think, well, I did something for the country, and America. I covered a lot of territory in several different countries, but America is the greatest country that I've ever known or ever been in. So I'd just say, whatever you can do to protect or prolong the life of America, do that.
That's great. That's great. Well, I want to tell you how much I appreciate you coming in today.
Well, I just wish that, like I said, I hope I done all right.
You did great. You did great. Well, we're going to end our conversation with Mr. Jaybird Plott. And on behalf of the Rotary Club of Knoxville, I want to thank you for coming in and telling us your story. And God bless America.
Thank you, Kyle. Good to be here.
I'm glad you came.
Thank you.
Thank you.